Cool. So, welcome to another edition of the UE podcast. I've got my good friend and C.E.P. megastar, André here from Portugal. You'll have to excuse my backdrop, and if I look a bit hot and sweaty, I've just come from a big game, and obviously, it's dead difficult to get people like André on the line. So, really big thanks to him for putting this time to one side, and apologies if I look a bit dusty. The German dust has affected me a bit. So, why don't we move on? So, first of all, hi, André. Let's start with an introduction. Who are you? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is André. Most of you guys probably know me from the international games, but I started playing paintball back in 2002. One of those crazy multi-events thing where you do rappel, slide, BTT, all that. And I played the first game and I got so hooked that it was two groups. And I went to ask the other group, please, anyone that doesn't want to play paintball, because I didn't want to go to do the bike thing. I wanted to do paintball again. And one of the ladies said, yeah, I can play my turn. And then I went crazy with it. So since then, 2002, and then I started playing games, and it was really hard to get, those small groups of 10, 12 guys to do the games at the venues, paintball sites. And I started playing some big games that were around Lisbon area. And from there, we set up our own team, which is Bando de Irmãos.
You're based in like Lisbon then, so that's
Lisbon.
That's kind of relatively central, south central Portugal. Cool. Yep.
Yeah, a lot of action. Luckily, there were some guys that called Renegados. They were basically doing big games. There were a lot of guys from board games and all those geeky stuff that you like. And they did some awesome big games with stories and really, really fun games. Awesome. And from there, they made like a tournament for teams, for racquetball teams. So back then, in the reality, it was 2003, 2004. There weren't any like racquetball teams. They were mainly just airball teams. So that championship for racquetball teams made them show up and gather. And that's how my own team started back in 2004.
I think that's quite a common thread. There's quite a few teams I know who became a team. They were just a bunch of friends, and they were kind of forced into being a team by a big event. So I think it's another good reason to go to these big events. Is it kind of solidifies a lot of this stuff,
Well, we didn't have a mission to let's do a team that's now 20 years old. Of course not. We just gathered there. So who's alone? You guy, that guy. And then we got together and made the team, and we get along really good. And actually, we won the championship that year, which was
cool.
The cherry on top.
So your team, Bando de Irmãos, is that right? Am I saying it correctly?
Yeah. The direct translation is Band of Brothers. Right, so from the TV show Band of Brothers.
Yeah,
and we got together regarding that.
So most people in kind of the international scene probably know you as C.E.P. though. So what's going on with that? How does that work?
Yeah, so of course we're going to skip Paintugal, but we can back afterwards. So there was a paintball association, Paintugal, and I got invited to go to the 2006 North versus South Warped Paintball Festival in UK, and I went there with a teammate. So I was basically almost alone. And the next year, I told so many amazing stories about the game, and the dimension of the festival was so huge regarding to the Portugal numbers, that a lot of people wanted to go there. And suddenly we had a problem because we are two guys from my own team, three guys from another team that's from middle of Portugal, and other guys from north of Portugal. And I started thinking, it doesn't make any sense for us to go spread away. We need to get that kind of national team vibe going in.
The unity,
and
so, I get it, yeah.
Yeah, that unity. So the Paintball Association, Paintugal, basically forged that C.E.P., which is the Portuguese Expeditionary Force for Paintugal.
Yeah. So
that's how it started.
Yeah, that's sort of like a team of teams. Like there are other teams like that. Some people will know Northern Alliance and so forth. But I we'll come on to this when we mentioned about Paintugal. But yours is almost a bit more of an actual international representation, which it's got a lot of credence to it. That as well as I think.
Yeah, it's like a double mission. So we have huge fun playing those international games, and we learn and we drink a lot of that knowledge and that experience, and we try to transfer the good things to Portugal. So we are upping up the games in Portugal regarding these experiences that we have abroad and talking with all the foreign guys.
Yeah. Okay, so why don't we jump into them? What exactly is Paintugal for those who don't know? I mean, I've been a bunch of times, but let's tell us about it, Andre.
Well, the coolest thing about Paintugal, from the words of a journalist that didn't have anything to do with paintball, so it wasn't biased.
Yeah.
She asked me once in an interview, "Is it Paintugal like a union for racquetball players?" And I started thinking, well, almost. So we got to go back to 2003 to basically the big games were just a dump of old paint or shitty paint, and you had to pay a lot, and you had that bad paint. So the games were cool, but then the suppliers were kind of bad. So we got like mad about it. So we started speaking with teams in northern Portugal, south of Portugal, and suddenly we said, well, why don't we do our own games? Why don't we do free games to spread the sport? And so my own team, Bando Brothers, we bought some air compressor to fill up the air tanks, and some of the other teams did that. So we got together, and one of each team would host a game, and would invite us in, and we would bring a lot of players there. So that's how it started. Then we made it all legal and forged a paintball association, a national paintball association that's called Paintugal. And from there, it was just fighting for the recognition of the sport in the Portuguese Institute of Sport, handling insurances because there weren't specific insurance for big games, and especially back in 2009 when the gun law got wanted to affect us really, really bad. We went to the parliament to discuss the law with them and assess them with the needs and what's happening, because they didn't have a clue.
That's really interesting. Like, to be at that kind of legislative level, that's really impressive. Like the influence you've got there, that's amazing.
Well, we got to fight for it because it was our sport that we love, and that's basically the job that Paintugal had along this. Actually, we are making 20 years this year, because there was a lot of missing regulations amongst big games. So you would go to some big game somewhere, it was like minimum velocity 310 or something like that. People shooting from the cars, people cornering next to people eating sandwiches. Like, no, you need to regulate that. So that was a really, really tough job. But basically, the main work that Paintugal does as an association is to help the local regional teams to host the games. So we don't have structure like a company to go and do big games all over the country. So we help the local regional clubs to make the game. So they don't have money to buy, like, I don't know, 6 chronos, 20 radios, safety net, like 100 meters of safety net. They don't have money for that. So the thing is that we bought it, and then we borrow them for their
lend
games.
It out to them. So you kind of got this like non-profit, like just for the good of paintball vibe going on. That's really nice. That's really nice. So people like myself, who are probably a bit ignorant, we use the phrase Paintugal interchangeably with your big game. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. So we got, usually we call it like the anniversary game. So the biggest game that the Paintball Association does, it's every last weekend of September, and it's called Paintugal, which is the same name of the association. But a couple of years ago, with some suggestions from international guys, we call it PBG, which is Paintugal Big Game, so that it goes with the flow of all the other games, the international games. But that's basically a game that we do once a year. We have requests from local authorities, from local towns, to have that game. And so we host the game like from zero, from scratch.
So I mean, for those of you who've not heard of it, it's a good fun game. We go every year. Very unique vibe about how it's played, and we'll talk about that in a second. But one of the key features is they go somewhere else each year, and so you're, like you're saying, you kind of move around the country, so you build it from scratch each time. There's some great stories about that, but that's got to present a challenge, doesn't it? What's it like starting it from scratch each year?
Logistically, it's kind of a nightmare. Of course. Many of the years we have like a support from those local teams that we discussed. They are like regional representatives of the association. Okay, so they can help out connecting the dots with the local authorities, getting some support, some areas, and then we go there like with all the logistics. We embody also the help from usually Boy Scouts. They are usually great workers, and we try to do the best of what we can for the weekend.
Yeah, that's really interesting. There. So, in terms of that, what's the kind of numbers you're getting there? What is it like? 1,000, 110? What is it?
No, the biggest Paintugal big game ever was 600 and something back in 2009, 2010. And then the crisis from 2008 hit.
Financial crisis,
yeah. Yeah, back in 2011, so it was a little bit delayed, the real impact. And from there, we never recovered much beyond 200. So last year we had a 160, which also was affected by the pandemic, of course. We got a lot of teams that went missing. A lot of people lost their jobs. And of course, paintball is an extra activity.
Yeah, so I mean, here's another thing which you notice when you go to Paintugal, and like the culture is very interesting. But one of the things you notice as a like a foreign player, you go over, it's people are lovely, it's very friendly, but it's also in a kind of really positive way. I'd say it's very humble. It's extremely cheap. No one's trying to take money off you, etc. It's a really affordable weekend. I mean, how much do you charge for the tickets and paint and stuff?
Well, the paint usually we kept the paint because we don't sell paint. Okay, we usually have like one supplier or a contest, and one of the suppliers won that contest. And usually the paint doesn't go over 35 bucks.
So it's like 35 euros per box of paint, which
max.
Compared to Europe, that's very cheap. So that's a big point out for some people.
Well, it's the Portuguese reality. With a minimum monthly wage of about 750 euros, you cannot go that far.
Yeah.
So regarding the tickets for the 2 days, we are speaking about 25 euros, probably closest to the date. The most expensive, I think, is 30 euros.
Wow.
For the 2 days. If you buy it like 1 week before or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's that kind of, I mean, I'm saying it in a positive way, that kind of humble, very kind of like it's affordable for people. And it's that kind of like, if you wanted to dip your toe in, it's such a cheap way of doing it, I think.
And it's because I think it's another aspect of the Portuguese culture regarding these events or these sports events is like that family vibe.
Yeah.
So we bring the family, we bring the wife also plays sometimes, we bring the kids.
Yeah.
And so it's like a picnic thing that we go and we meet the friends, and then of course that opportunity to see guys that you don't see the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Guys that are from far away.
So certainly, for example, at my side, I've had quite a few events there where we've got partners, friends, colleagues, etc. And all they've done is show up, sit in the sun. It's beautiful weather that time of year. Have an ice cream and drink a whole load of beer or wine, and they've had the time of their life. It's a lot of people bring their kids, at least with their whole family as well. So it's not just dad's gone for a holiday weekend or mum's gone for a holiday weekend. It's like you can take everyone, which is pretty cool. Cool. So I think that pretty much covers it. In terms of Paintball, the thing which you mentioned the location. I just want to tell you a little story. One of our famous years was about 10 years ago. We went to a very small village, and previously the largest event they'd ever held was an onion festival where the farmers came out and showed off their prize onions. So it was this tiny little village, and you can imagine I think it was about 70 foreigners just all rocked up. We all agreed to meet at the bar next to the hotel, and this poor old guy who had like the telly on and two guys watching Benfica or whatever, all of a sudden we all storm in. Oh, this all your old friends, you haven't seen him in ages, straight to the bar.
Yeah.
17 beers, please. The guy's like, oh, okay. Gets them out. Obviously, Lima Bravo, the Dutch team right behind us, like, oh, we're not letting them win. Another 17 beers, please. We drunk the whole town dry in about 5 minutes. It was hilarious.
Yeah. Hostile was also there, so it was a large meetup.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that the next day, the guy was wandering around the streets looking for us because we dried the bar.
Well, didn't the mayor try and get sponsorship of you, or trying to sponsor you for the next year or something? He was saying,
yeah. they like it so much, the event and all the vibe, the positive vibe, because also the families were coming in. We are filling up the hotels in a dry time of the year, so it was not like a high season thing. It was the late September, so they like it so much that they wanted the game to be there for 10 years in a row.
There was they had a party later that night as well, which is this is another good one.
Yeah.
And the mayor came along, and it was really nice. He was doing all the handshaking, just being lovely to everyone. Really nice guy. Of course, we're having a big party, lots of beers, lots of drinking, music. And the police showed up, and they're like, "What's this party? I'm sorry, I'll have to close this down." And the mayor pulls the police to one side, saying, "I will sign any document that needs. We'll keep this party open right now. Police, you need to go away. This party's happening."
Yeah.
Exactly.
And they went away. We stayed there until 3 a.m. or something.
Yeah, it's a great night. Okay, so in terms of like people who go to Paintugal, there's obviously you mentioned the international teams. Historically, there's been quite a few of them. UE, we've obviously been. I think our first year was 2012.
2012. Yes.
That was quite a good one. But we've basically come every year since. There's a few other regulars. There's the Spanish team in Portugal.
Yeah, the Spanish, the Wolf team. There are also usually some teams depending on the place where we make the game. We got some northern Spanish teams from Galicia. Usually the hostiles also went. Lima Bravo, of course. Mainly the gang that goes to North versus South and does like the night out, blackout hunting games. Those kind of friends that usually come by because it's like the last weekend of paintball fun, good weather.
So, it's certainly in the UK the weather takes a bit of a downturn, and for us it's kind of like the last day, the last proper game of the season for us, I think. It's cool. So obviously you mentioned just in that answer there, you talked about people like Lima Bravo, these other people like that. C.E.P, obviously that team that has come out of it. You've been abroad. You mentioned North versus South. There's quite a few games you've been to. I've come back from Battlegrounds, which is in Poland. Bertel, who I've also interviewed, which you should probably see online now. Effectively, he does other games because you do Milsim stuff. You've been to ESG, is that right? What other adventures have you been on which you need to tell us about?
Well, I've been mainly, of course, North versus South. I did a couple of games like the Tip and Challenge that was made in France on the fort, the Givier Fort. Also, the Netherlands with Lima Bravo. We made a couple of weekends there. We got the Born to Strike in Poland also. I went to the battleground for the Arctic Warfare back in 2015. And I spoke with Bertel already. The battleground grew like millions after that. And then back in 2022, I saw the ad for the Euro Super game, which was the biggest game in the world for MagFed. And I'm basically playing MagFed since, I don't know, MagFed only since 2019 or something like that. I played MagFed and Hopper games, but basically since 2019, I'm just getting the kick out of it, just playing MagFed. So the Euro Super game is actually the mecca for that type of game. And probably the craziest one that I will cherish for the rest of my days was Brazil.
So basically, very interested in that. Tell us about Brazil.
So basically, we met a team. It was a funny story. So one of the team members wanted to publish their work of the university, and that work needs to be published to gain some points or something, so that she can end the degree. And back then, I was president of Paintugal, and she asked, and I liked the project, the work that she made, because it was not about the physical aspect, the muscles, and the good thing that makes you your heart or something. No, she interviewed everyone around the player, for multiple players, to ask how was the player before and after starting to playing paintball regularly.
Okay.
And so it was really interesting on the psychology of the player, how calm, how more gentle it was, how more mentally accurate it was from that team play and everything. So it was really, really interesting. So I published that. Back then, I was also writing for some magazines. I pushed it to the Grip magazine, the Paintball magazine. So she got the degree, and then she told me that the team was like 20-something years old, and like, whoa. and this was back in 2005, six. I said, whoa, that's a lot of time for a team. And then I wanted to know more. And so I interviewed the team, and basically they were just focused on milsim for 20 something years. Wow, that's amazing. So I did the interview for them for that article on the Grip magazine, and they sent me a couple of books, like real hard copy books about the games. So they made interviews to the players, and you basically started reading it, and you travel among the battle from one side, because there are three teams and they interviewed all the teams. So you get to know this team attacked that one, and then she's asking the other team how they felt with the attack, how did they respond. So you basically get submerged in that battle.
That's really interesting, that.
And it was real book, so it was really quality. So I got the thing going in my head, because they did those games for 24-hour games every 2 years.
24 hours solid games.
Solid games. If you wanted to sleep, you can sleep, but you don't take your mask off, because the refs are there for 24 hours with the masks on.
Wow.
So it was really, really challenging. So we got that idea cooking inside the head, and back in 2018,
amazing,
we gathered 3 guys and made a 12-hour flight there. Then a 4-hour drive to the middle of nowhere, and we had a blast for 24 hours. I remember crossing the river in a boat without any light, so that the enemy doesn't spot us. And you are in the middle of the boat with 15 kilos on your back, full of gear, doing milsim stuff. Like, Jesus Christ, this is amazing.
That's real talk. That's amazing. That's cool.
So I'll never forget. And the guys are really cool. All the family of them are really, really amazing. And they actually, it's funny, because then I challenged them to join us at the Euro Super Game at Battleground last year, and they went, and they come this year again. So we got all together in Europe at Battleground for the Euro Super Game.
That's nice. So in terms of like the other European games, obviously there's the ones we've played together. So you mentioned North versus South. Obviously you were the general for one of the years in the UK versus game, the famous game. Yeah, that's one of the things for those of you who kind of don't know too much about this, or not been to too many international events. What you tend to build up is, I mean, I guess you'd call them memes, but there's jokes and kind of layers of like comradeship, but also like one-upmanship between the different events. So, for example, the game, when it was you and me generaling, there is this running joke about the UK versus game about having a partial victory, and it all comes from like 2000, was it 7? I can't remember when it was. 2013. That was the year, yeah. And these kind of jokes, so the more you go abroad, the more people you meet, the more you like, it adds to like almost like a dialect. And once you go into these events, all these little words and jokes, they all add up. And it always reminds me of like going back to school, and you've been away for the summer holiday and you're seeing your old friends again. Like I always spend the first half a day at any big game just hugging people and having a beer and chatting. I have to allocate extra time, otherwise I'm not ready in time.
Yeah, the bonding is amazing. And from that game, I remember 2 things, cool things. So basically, Jim, I know, sorry, Jim, but Jim usually sends us a lot of curveballs during the game. So he makes the game, and we had like 9 objectives to accomplish. And that's why the partial, because we managed to do 5 out of 9. And basically, the first 40-something minutes, I killed with my team. Of course, we made a huge strategy with Lima Bravo, C.E.P, some Swedish guys, some Norwegian guys, so all the foreigners, and we made a strategy that basically we killed a third of the terrain. So basically we accomplished the 3 first objectives in like 40 minutes. And so with that, we didn't need that third of the terrain. So I can focus all the players on the other 2/3 of the terrain. So, and then I saw Jim and say, "How is it going?" And his face was like, "Like a fuck up, my guy."
Well, this is the thing. Like I said, in that game, and we'll talk about it some other time, I'm sure. But that has now become like a part of the folklore, So that game is now designed like that, because that joke is now a real part of the game, and it's those kind of things that are like they're wonderful in the history. You really like it's like telling, it's an actual saga in the old sense of the word. Like stories become legends. You know what I mean? Which is great.
It is, and from there, I exited the field, like last 20 seconds or something. I was exiting the field. I didn't have any paint, and suddenly I lost the game because I only had like 4 objectives out of 9.
Mm.
And then Lima Bravo came all shouting and stuff like, "What are you doing? We lost the game." No, in the last 10 seconds, we holded the 5th flag or something,
Yeah.
and we managed to score. Like, what? Wow. So that bonding, those stories,
Yeah.
those memories will live
So
forever.
it's the war stories. That's it.
Yeah.
They're what you get. Like I said, for those who've not done a big game, it's vital you stick around and like at the campsite or whatever, because sitting
Yeah.
around having a few beers, because everyone goes out, everyone has their own little adventure. We have a phrase in UE: shoot someone, got shot. That's it. Job done. Once you've gone out and done your little bit of action, you've got the stories to go home to, and you
Yeah.
spend like hours just having a beer, chatting around, telling each other how cool you are. It's all part of the fun. I love it.
It is. It is.
Now, you mentioned something when we were kind of setting up for this. Obviously, you're just a paintball player. You're involved in Paintugal and so forth, but actually, you're one of the few people I've interviewed so far who don't own a site or anything like that. But you do have a little
No.
business in the background. So the Lynx
Yes.
sign. Tell us about that, because I think I saw a couple of those things out this weekend. So tell us about what you do.
Yeah. So basically, I'm a really creative guy and always trying to find solutions for problems. And thus, I just dive in 3D printing without knowing anything. We started by Globetex with a friend, and you know a little bit about it. But after a few years, I wanted to keep going. He didn't want to go, so I made a new brand, and I started Lynx Tactical Gear back in 2019. So I started refining the 3D printing stuff, studying a lot of all the polymers that they used, that were available, which
Yep.
one would be the best, how to print it. So it took me like, just to print something nice, took me like 4 months of investigation
Yeah.
and going around. So it was really an intense journey, but completely out of my workday stuff and
So
all the other
you're
hobbies.
doing all
So
this research like at home in your free time and everything.
yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned the polymers, like, and so forth, because obviously 3D printing's a big thing. Like people use it for everything from like fixing their fridge to
Yeah.
printing Warhammer models. What's the technical difficulty with paintball then? Why do you have to do all that research?
Well, usually people, when they start, they just want to print something. So basically, they download something that someone designed and started printing stuff, and it fits, it's okay, and it's good. But there's more into that. That's why I went to study a lot of on the materials. There are some polymers, some plastics that are really easy to print. Okay, and usually, if it's easy, you stick to that. I went to the opposite way. I went to what does a paintball player or a paintball article needs to keep alive, sharp, not breaking, not cracking.
So you mean
And
like
then I
the
found that,
durability of it? You mean?
yes, yeah, because the other ones were easy to print, like PLA or PTG, but they are not really hard on impact.
Yeah.
They can be bendy, which is cool, but they cannot withstand the impact. And one thing
Okay.
that the plastics suffer a lot is the UV degradation. And
Yeah.
of course,
Okay.
this is an outdoor sport. And so there was no brainer to me. If this is an outdoor sport that will play in the rain, play in the sun, and bake inside the car with, I don't know, 80 degrees Celsius or something, you need to
Understood.
have something really, really durable. So that was the path that I took. It was the opposite way. So what does a paintball player need in terms
Yeah.
of film and equipment
So
material?
it's like kind of like product first. So that's kind of interesting. Like you're getting the right kind of durability, the right product there. So what are the products you're making? What's the actual stuff you're
Well,
developing for people?
usually it's solutions I like to implement for problems I see. One of the problems, the first problem I saw was you were using like those buttstocks from the 1980s, still in 2019. So I got bored with it. So I made like some small buttstocks, you
Mm.
know, like with a special, like a more of a futuristic design. So I don't like to
Yep.
do stuff that exists. I like to do stuff that don't exist. So basically, I made the buttstock that has interchangeable backs. So
Yeah.
basically, if you
Okay.
like a thinner one, a grabby one with the points and arrows, you can buy them and
Okay.
adjust what you like. Some people like it like straight. Some people like it more curvy. So you got these options. Usually you
Yeah,
don't
okay.
have it when you buy a stock. It's what it is. The other
So
one, the bigger one, yeah.
so what you're saying is you found that there's like a gap in the market there, and that's what you've gone for. You said, I want
Yeah.
this, or my friends wanted this, and that's why you made it. Okay. So it's like it's almost like customer driven, the way you're kind of doing stuff.
Yes, yes, yes. And then the other problem I tried to solve was the mags. The magazines are expensive for MagFed, and usually inside your team you have the same mags of the other guys, and some guys would not handle the mags that well. They would let it rust and all dirty and stuff. And in the middle of the battle, you can exchange mags with your teammates and stuff. And then you get home and like, this is not my mag. It's all dirty and rusty and stuff like that. The other issue was that it's really easy to lose a mag inside the woods. It's really easy. So I started thinking to myself, okay, I need to get a solution to tag the mags. And so I started first with these FID magazines. Basically, they had like 2 clips that go on each side. So I made just 1 clip. So it's really easy to pop in. And you can write your name, team name, tag name, call sign, whatever you want.
Cool.
Then also went for the other mags. So we have like sliding mags. So it's really easy to just pop the tag. Even the bigger ones for the snipers.
Oh, okay.
And you have multiple colors. As you can see by now, you have multiple colors.
So were you printing those in kind of their names on it, or because they've also said links? Is that customizable, color
No,
customizable?
yeah, it's everything customizable. So I have like 14 different options between OD green and black as the main, like the part, and then there's all the other colors that you can choose. So basically, you write your name, you write which color base you want, which color that you want for the letters, and then I'll just
I've
made
seen
it
that in
and,
some of
and
the
send
big
them.
games. There was like it might have been SBG. There was like a big box of just stuff people just throw in mags and equipment they've found out on a big Milsim game.
Yeah,
Come back going, well, this one isn't mine, so just chuck it in the box, and like you might as well
yeah.
throw it away at that point. Now, who's going to find their stuff in there if it's all the same stuff? You know what I mean?
Yes, yes. So this is like a solid way to get your name, your team name, and it's easy to find. I also made it was my biggest challenge up to date because as I had to learn 3D printing, I also had to learn mechanical design engineering and stuff
Yeah,
to work with CNCs. And so basically I've been developing this concept of having an angled bottle and stock.
yeah.
And so the aim was to shorten the distance that we have to the
Oh, into your shoulder.
to
Okay.
the body. Yeah, shorten. So this started with the TMC, and I saw a lot of guys, especially German guys, the tall guys,
Yeah.
complaining that the solution that Tippen implemented for having the bottle here was too long, and
Right.
actually it was. So if I have like a 1.9 meter guy complaining that it was too long, and that's a problem I can try to solve. So I started
Yeah.
with the TMC, and I knew back then that the EMF from the Planet Eclipse was about to enter the market. So I switched production to this one.
Yeah.
And it took me a couple of years, a lot of years, and I made this on-off, angled on-off with the stock that's one-hand adjustable also. It's also original design. So basically you just need one hand, and you can get it longer if you
Cool.
want, or just press it and it stays and
That's
with
cool.
one hand. And the aim was to get that sci-fi look. Oh, but by the way, I don't know if the guys are finding weird why we have these colors.
I was going to
But
point
anyway,
out
this is
that's the legal requirement in Portugal, isn't it?
yeah. In Portugal, you have the legal requirement of being when you have these types of markers, you need to be in a paintball association like Paintugal. You need to be registered there, and then you need to have this that you can hide in the field. So that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And so as I was saying, I was also trying to find like a way to do like futuristic design stuff that don't exist. Like for example, this end guard with like a triangular shape,
Yeah.
which you can add double.
Oh, the rails on the
Like
side. Yeah.
the
That's cool.
rails. You
Yeah.
can put like cameras or flashlights, whatever you want.
Yeah.
So
That's
I'm
cool.
always designing new stuff. Mainly to solve problems and of course to have like that design look aspect in it.
Well, it's funny. This kind of all ties together because you made there was a product we first started with. You mentioned Globtax, which is the thing I got
Block
one
tax.
with. Yeah. And it was kind of like a semi-milsim, semi-futuristic kind of case for the Geos and a few other designs. And
Yeah,
I remember we did some kind of trials for you and so forth, and you gave us a couple of like alphas or betas, and then we ended up getting like a fully branded set. And I'll make sure I put the photos up of that. But basically, they were done in our colours with our branding, and I've still got mine. It's like 10 years later, and so it really
yeah,
kind of it was unique as well because, like you said, it had that slightly sci-fi but practical because it's got the Picatinny rail on
yeah,
it, and
yeah.
it's
This is mine for over 10 years also.
yeah, and I put that through some right hassle, so it's survived. It's battered, but it's still there. So yeah, I can attest to it. That's
E-
pretty good.
Even
Cool. What's
even
the
back even back then, we went to do the development of it, and we used back then ABS, which is Lego. You step on a Lego, you got
yeah,
hurt. The Lego doesn't get hurt, so that was the point of getting this.
interesting.
Um,
Yeah,
and it was back then also a way to solve a problem because
yeah.
if you wanted to play a milsim game, you could not use the airball markers
Mm.
like the geos and stuff. So this was a way to hide the geo
Yep.
and
To get round the
and
system.
put a yeah, to put a small loader and go there. So it
Oh,
was
cool.
also a way to solve the problem.
That's interesting. So, what's the plans for the future for kind of links and so forth? Have you got any new things in the works, or because that's a relatively new product that shoulder back? Have you
Yeah,
officially launched that yet, or what?
yeah, I launched it at North versus South this year.
Hmm?
Okay, so it was a lot of development, of course, in this, and I didn't have the perfect solution or a good solution. It's like sometimes you do something for you and it's okay-ish,
Yep.
but it was not something I would be proud of selling. So I made like a full on-off, which is a lot more quality, for the bottles to unscrew, screw.
Mhm.
It always
Yep.
messes up the threads. Also, this buttstock and also the front, the end guard. I also have multiple sizes, by the way. I can show for the regular
Yeah.
barrel. I have a bigger one. I have this one that fits also there. So this is all around the EMF.
Yep.
So I will finish up the TMC late this year for sure because I have because all of this can be reused on both.
Start rolling out
Um,
across different models so it's available to everyone. That's
yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And also we developing another buttstock,
Yep.
another design that I've been aiming for. And that's basically it. So around all the mags, by the way,
Okay.
we have
That's. I mean,
because every time a new mag comes out, you need to
yeah.
find a solution. So you need to go around the mag and try to find a solution. For example, this one was the hardest one, the Eclipse one,
Yeah.
because you need to use the screws
Yeah.
because it doesn't have anything to rail on or to clamp on. So you need to find the right solution that's also practical for the player.
Yeah. Well, obviously, small manufacturer. You've still got a lot of products considering it's basically just you and your garage and the 3D
Yeah.
printer and stuff. That's pretty good work. Cool. So, well, let's kind of round this off then. So, we've obviously chatted about a few things. Paintugal's on the horizon. When's that?
Yeah. So it's last weekend of September, 28 and 29. We are returning to that mythical place of the Onion Festival. We
Excellent.
found it would be funny to do. We did the 10 years of the Paintball Association there, and we found it was funny to do the 20. Of course, they got crazy and stoked about the idea and help us out managing the location, which is an awesome venue
Yeah.
near a lake. Really, really cool.
It's
They
stunning,
improved a
isn't it?
lot.
Yeah.
It is. It is. You can check the website is paintugal.pt/pbg.
Yeah.
We
We'll
have a
make sure
couple of
that's linked
videos and
below.
pictures from that. Yeah. So you have like the big lake as a scenery. You have like bridges, small rivers crossing the field. You got open areas where they usually do crops, but we are off season. And huge boulders in the middle of the woods. So it's a mystical scenario.
And obviously, it's
Uh,
Portugal, so it's extremely hilly.
That's the biggest complaint we got for all the years.
Yeah, I mean,
We
just
always try to get a flat-ish
yeah,
terrain.
but yeah, yeah, trust me. There's a running joke about Portugal. It doesn't matter which way you're facing; it's always uphill. You can be going downhill, and it still feels like it's uphill. So yeah, well, I'm certainly going. I know you are going to be putting in a presence, but yeah, we'll put the links to all the PBG down there. And honestly, it's one of the best kind of relaxed holiday events I've ever been to. So it is strongly recommended. Okay, well, I think we'll call it a day then. Well,
For
thanks.
someone, just a side note, for anyone that doesn't believe, usually we go to the beach in late September, first weekend of October. For us, it's the weather is that good.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
trust, it's really a good weekend.
yeah, it's glorious. So thanks again to Andre. We really appreciate you coming on the podcast again. And well, I'm looking forward to seeing you at Paintugal. Let's have a blast of a weekend. Much
See you in a
appreciated.
couple
I'll
of
see you
weeks.
soon, man.
Cheers, mate.